Hey everybody, so I want to talk about the dog that has a lot of difficulty letting you leave the house. And sadly, really sadly, this is a very real and growing problem. And sometimes it's exceptionally severe, right? Sometimes it's the dog cries a little bit. Sometimes it's that they sail out two-story windows trying to find their people. So there are all different degrees of severity here, but they are all sort of rooted in the same basic approach to resolution. So for me, when I think about the dog that is doing this, again, I need you to step back and look at all those other places that we talked about to find clues. Sometimes these dogs won't even let us leave the room, right? So there's something called isolation distress that is a little bit different than the separation of you leaving the house. Some dogs won't let you leave the room, but if you actually leave the house, they are okay. So you have to start to try and identify the variances of these pieces, right? If you can't go down the hall to the bathroom or get up and go to the kitchen without your dog needing to be Velcroed to your hind end, there may be a clue there that he's too attached. Now, we love dogs that are attached, right? We as people love to be needed, love the nurturing, love the cuddles. We love it all. But it could be an inappropriate depth of relationship, right? So if you can't walk down the hall and your dog stay in his chair, then you need to start there. And one of the easiest things to do is to teach the place command, and instructions for that are out on my training blog, thecaninecoachblog.com. But teach place where he has something else to do. He's doing it under his own brain power because you asked him to, versus trying to be restrained by a crate or a tether or whatever. And he learns to see you go out of sight to take a shower, go out of sight to go in the kitchen, whatever. And he gets much more comfortable with that notion of you coming back, but being away from him. It also likely means that a few times a night, a few times a day, that instead of him curling up in your lap, you need to say, nope, not now, buddy, and put him on his place command or put him in his crate. So I'm a big believer in crate training for all of our dogs. That doesn't mean that they stay in it all the time or that they don't eventually get free rein, but just that they learn to be comfortable and adaptive to the crate as a young dog, especially young dogs that are going through the phases of potty training and teething and all that comes with that. For any new dog that you're bringing into your house, a newly adopted dog, crate training is the way to get them sort of acclimated without overwhelm and without a lot of risk of the mistakes that could be made. What happens a lot of times is people, they feel sorry for the dog, especially the dog that's come out of the shelter and goes, here's my house, take it all, right? And what we really need is to help them get comfortable in their own space. Don't invite them into the bed too soon, right? Don't do that. My dogs sleep in the bed with me now, but if I put them on the floor, right, they understand that it means they can't be up there right now. It's by invitation kind of thing. But the mistake a lot of people will make in crating a dog is you crate them only when you are planning to leave, right? And so the dog picks up this whole energy of your preparedness to leave, the routine that you have of locking up the house or getting your shoes on or finding your coat or whatever it may be. they pick up these patterns, that they're super smart. They know the pattern and they know the energy means mom's getting ready to leave. So you need to actually put the dog in the crate while you're home, not just while you're sleeping, but while you're active in your house. It might be during TV time. It might be during time you're on Facebook. It might be while you read for a few minutes. Any of those things, dog needs to be in his crate simply because you told him it's time, right? So get used to that. That's kind of step one of really working on a dog that won't let you leave the house, is that they will be in their crate when you are home, right? Not forever. This is sort of a temporary approach to fixing the greater problem. Once they can stay in their crate, then you want to be able to put them in their crate on a downstay with the door open, and then stay in that crate under their own mental capabilities with the door wide open, knowing that they could step out at any time, and they don't because you told them they needed to stay, right? So just a little bit of obedience work starts to come into play here. Now, if you have a dog that is not at all comfortable going in the crate, dogs can even have things like claustrophobia. So we may need to work on that. There is a guide to crate training out on my website that will help you get them more comfortable being in the crate. And it's an interval approach. It's they go in, they come out, they go in, they come out, they go in, the door closes, they come out, and they go in and they get a toy and they come out, right? There's all sorts of interval phases to getting them more and more comfortable and more confident being in that crate, right? Having a dog outside of the crate who won't let you leave the house, that does the destructions of the blinds or chewing on the drywall, the crate is the safest place for them. Now, a lot of you are going to go, but he's going to bust out of the crate. He's going to gnaw on the crate and break his teeth. Yep, all that could happen. So you may need a more secure crate. These $100 crates that we get at the PetSmart with the little wire squares, they're not going to restrain a dog that wants out. They're just not. The quality of metal, or there's a word I'm looking for, the integrity of the metal, the strength of the metal, is not going to be strong in a little dog crate. And yet a little dog can decide with a lot of ambition, I'm getting out of this thing. And the same is true for a bigger dog. So we may need to look at different crate styles. Now, the tricky part about that is you can't just throw the dog in the crate. Please don't do that. I know people do. Put them in a crate that we know is escape proof and just expect them to deal with it. That's so not fair. And it is not going to help the problem long term. It's going to create a dog that tries much harder to get out, amplify the stress and the panic before the dog is just too fatigued to do anything else. Okay, so we still need crate training, and we still need a way of communicating with that dog the expectations of what being in the crate in a calm state of mind looks like. Okay, so I absolutely bring in essential oils into my crate training protocols, and to those dogs that are very uncomfortable with us leaving the house. So I learned years ago about a technique of actually putting straw into the crate. So it's not hay, it's not pine straw, it's straw straw like you might scatter out over grass seed, right, to keep the birds from getting at all of it. And just stuff the crate nearly half or 3/4 full of straw. That texture and that earthiness and that fragrance that comes with it is actually very relaxing to the dog. It will make a mess in your house, but it's not going to make nearly the mess that you would have if the dog ate the drywall, right? So it's a way to begin putting a little more comfort in there without things that they can chew on or shred. They're not really going to want to eat the straw, but they're going to get a ton of benefit from all of the naturalness of that product. I do use essential oils. I will have a diffuser in that area that has an intermittent schedule. Now, we don't want to put a dog in an area with a new oil and a new diffuser and leave, right? We're going to build our way to actually being able to leave the house. But this crate training that we're talking about, you have a diffuser nearby so that it goes off and has this intermittent schedule to it. Oils that I like to put in the diffuser would be cedarwood oil, vetiver, lavender, a combination of 2 or 3 of those, right? Sort of mix and match. You can rotate with essential oils like peace and calming or stress away. To me, lavender's good, but for these dogs that really have the state of mind of, oh my gosh, my mama left and I must get out of this thing, lavender to me is not enough for what I think this needs to do. I think we need that grounding earthiness, and cedarwood actually proves to be one that the dogs choose when I let them self-select very often. I've actually had dogs want to lick it off my hands. I'll put a couple of drops on them. I'll spritz that straw a little bit. Lots of ways to try and get some essential oil into that equation. Okay. The approach to actually being able to leave the house, in my mind, requires, again, being able to leave the room. I actually like using a vibrating collar. Sometimes that might not be enough, but I start there, and I will start with the collar in a metal bowl on top of the crate, and I leave the room. I may even fake leave the house as we build our way through this interval training. I like having a camera where I can see and hear what's going on, even though I may be outside or in the car, have driven down the driveway, for example, and they think I've left. And then if they are trying to escape, I will vibrate that collar in the bowl on top of the crate. Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to scare my dog. Your dog's terrified already, right? I would rather have these surprise interruptions than to allow my dog to stay in this state of mind for a long period of time. So if scaring your dog turns you off, then I get it. That's okay. This solution may not be for everybody. But I would rather interrupt the dog and have him think that his behavior is the cause for the crate vibrating, and he stop and go, okay, if I just settle down, that's not going to happen again, right? And then over time, he goes in and he gets settled. He gets a nice chewy Kong with stuff full of all sorts of beneficial things, right? And then we're not having to worry about that anymore. This interruption, this correction is a short-term thing. The idea is it happens a couple of times and the dog associates that his behavior is creating the response from the crate and he changes his behavior. That's a beautiful thing, right? That's a beautiful thing. And then I've got the essential oils and better nutrition and all of that going to help the rest of the experience be more settled and more calm, right? For some dogs, that's totally enough. For others, it's not enough. You may actually have to move to he's wearing the collar, right? I do not like bark collars for this. I don't like bark collars at all, but I certainly don't like it for a dog that's in this separation distress state of mind. Because what can happen is they bark or whine, the thing stems, they yelp, right, with surprise. The intent is not pain, y'all, I promise you that. But they're surprised, so they make another vocalization, the thing stems again, and vocal stem, and it's awful. It's terrible. If I'm in control of it, right, if I'm in control of it, then I don't have to change the intensity of the correction. I can change the cadence of it, right? That might work. Or I could wait a second or two and see if that's enough. There's just so much technique and finesse to being able to communicate with him and I'm pointing like he's sitting here in a crate, while he's in a crate, but I'm in the car down the driveway, right? Because the whole idea is he's got to learn some coping skills and some ways to self-soothe through this. So it works. I've never had a dog not make a significant amount of progress within 3 to 4 days. So those of you who've been struggling with this for years, enough's enough, right? Your dog is not healthy in that state of mind. So crate training, way better nutrition if you haven't started making that shift yet. Because again, we know without question, the nutrition in the dog's body affects how the brain functions, right? So does that chemical load we talked about. Bringing in the soothing and the calming essential oils are absolutely appropriate here. So remember, cedarwood, vetiver, lavender, valerian. Valerian's a great one. I even make their water chamomile tea. Right? I do. I make their water chamomile tea for several days as we're going through this. Anything to try and start bringing down some of that stress and arousal. So it all matters. You then have to layer in additional training. It doesn't have to be this crazy deep obedience stuff, but get the dog's mind working, right? Remember that the presentation just before this one, get the dog doing something else. It all plays into the situation. This notion of a tired dog is a happy dog is a load of hooey, unless we are doing things that make the dog tired from doing what he loves. There's a big difference, right? Mental fatigue and addressing the state of mind is far different than taking the dog out for a walk that when he's so tired when he comes back, all he can do is sleep. That doesn't change his relationship and the association well enough with being alone or being crated. That doesn't do it. I know people who have aggressive dogs who think, I'm going to take him for a long run. He's going to be exhausted when the family comes over for a visit or when we got to take him to the vet or whatever. And yeah, the dog is so tired, he can't really function well. But all we're doing is building a better athlete in those situations, right? And we're building endurance. And so then when you get a dog that's not tired, you just got a stronger athlete with an aggressive behavior. And the same is true if we think about that in terms of dogs with separation distress. We're building endurance, we're building tolerance, we're building stamina, and that might not be the right answer. I will also caution you that taking your dog for a walk where he's out leading the way, doing his thing, is not what I call a structured walk that's going to do a lot for the state of mind. The structure of the walk in which you claim the leadership role and it's a working walk with pace changes and direction changes and a prevention of sniffing and peeing and pooping in the places that he thinks he should, right? When you start taking control of that, and heal means heal, and it's not until you give him permission to go have a little freedom. When you get that level of structure, then we've got a dog that's working during his walk versus this leisurely stroll in which we are not really engaged. So all of that matters. So separation distress can totally be corrected. Totally. But when we think it's like going out to the local mega retailer and buying a supplement that's going to fix it for the couple of hours that we're gone, that approach is all wrong. That approach is completely wrong. This is not something that you can just put a couple of drops of oil on the dog and say, I'm out of here, I'll see you in a couple of hours, and expect that the state of mind got resolved during that time. That's not going to happen. You need to bring your essential oils into the training experience, and to put in the work and to put in the effort and to put in the communication with the dog that says, this is how this new protocol goes. These are my new expectations for you. Expectations while I am home have also changed, my friend. And rebuild this dog and rebuild his relationship with the crate and rebuild his experience with you leaving. It takes time, but it's doable. So I have actually stopped taking in separation anxiety cases in my board and train program. Sure, I can absolutely fix it. It's very stressful, right? Because for the first 3 days, I plan not to leave my house, but I'm doing all of this exercise and the video and the, watching him on video and fake leaving and all that kind of stuff. And it works. But then we have to start over when we get the dog back home, because the owner's emotions have not changed relative to the association of the crate and the communication and the new rules. The dog built up a real trust and a real relationship with me and finally felt comfortable. And then we shifted it all again. We started over. And so I want to minimize as many transitions as I can for these dogs. I mean, people say to me all the time, he was in a foster, he never showed any signs of separation distress, right? We don't know which transition or which experience will be the one that triggers these new behaviors. We don't know. In that foster home, there may have been a different kind of relationship. There may have been other dogs. It's like bringing that dog to me. The time that a dog here is with me for 2 or 3 weeks, we're working, right? That dog has a lot of activity going on. He's learning a lot of things. He's having to do things new. My energy is one of leadership and confidence because I've been through it. I know that when he's having that moment in the crate, I don't need to be upset by it, right? People don't always have that same experience, right? If they did, you wouldn't need me in the first place. But what I do is coach them through it, whether it's on the phone or Facebook or whatever, and help them help the dog so that we've eliminated at least one more transition. The dog doesn't have to go, why am I being bounced around yet another time? And not only that, I was here and now I'm not, and now I'm going back. So all of those transitions for the dog, I believe, are hard on them. So that's part of why I eliminated the board and train program. So take a look at my document on this topic on the caninecoachblog.com. Bring in your essential oils, bring in your diffuser and start using them. Start working on nutrition and training and crate training, and then begin this interval work to get your dog used to you leaving and being out of the house for a few minutes at a time, and build your way so that you could leave for the day if you had to. It's doable. I promise it's doable.